Afternoon, today we will tackle about the women in the Philippines, chapter 12. The actual condition of pre-Spanish women in the Philippines could be reflected from the practices of the indigenous people and the testimonies of Spanish chronicles. The sources indicate that there was a genuine measure of equality among men and women during the pre-Spanish period. Prior to Hispanic colonization, it can be said that there is no discrimination between sons and daughters, and children are treated equally and were also educated. So in this era, parents took pride on the children equally. Male and female children did not experience any form of inequality regarding the divisions of inheritance. They were educated equally, and each of them took pride and active role in society when they grew up. Sexual inhibitions regarding virginity in marriage is not universally valued, and sex education is prescribed as a duty of a mother to his daughter and stated at least in the code of colonial. So marriage were arranged and dowry was paid by the groom to wife's family. Since from this period, virginity in marriage is not universally valued. Each family member has also viewed an equal partner in marriage, even then women ran the household and were mainly responsible for all major decisions regarding the running of households. So divorce was available to both husband and wife, and both have equal rights to property and children under ancient laws. So in here, women are free to exercise their decisions concerning the household and men cannot contradict it. They are also free to exercise their decisions concerning the reproductions with abortion as an option. So they may decide to have a divorce anytime, and both of them have still an equal rights to their property and their children. The women played an important role in the economic life of the people. They were involved in actual planting, harvesting, weaving, making pottery and trading, and women also held substantial amount of the family's capital and even managed the land's holdings. So historian Luis Derry noted that women also fought alongside men in battle, and many of them ruled the communities as direct rulers, caretakers of the young dato, or just an influential people who could build alliances or negotiate the outcomes of battles. So here that women also played an important role in the economic sector, which is the planting, the harvesting, the weaving, and the making of pottery and trading. The reason for this level of equality was given by Ida Santos Maranan in Do Women Really Hold Up Half the Sky? Notes on the women's movement in the Philippines. So from here, equality that was given by Ida Santos Maranan, he highlighted that women are independent because they have an equal access and control on production resources. Historian Estelle Fredman notes that whenever women are involved in the production of food, there is a measure of equality in a society. So women thinkers in the Philippines generally agree that inequality between men and women began or developed in colonial times. Babaylan referred to as individual who have a special knowledge or can converse with spirits. The babaylan was a woman or a man who took on the persona of a woman and said to be chosen by the spirits. So babaylan was recognized for possessing special knowledge about nature, religious nature, and cultural practices. So here, babaylan are healers who could speak to spirits and negotiate for blessings, avert misfortunes, predicts future events, heal broken bodies and spirits, assist the dying, and help users one's souls to the next life. So essential to the functioning of pre-Hispanic society, the babaylan help people understand their cosmic or in order to navigate reality meaningfully. So here is the chant by Babaylan Cariapa, which foretold the coming of the Spaniards. So this land will be changed, other people will possess it. With another culture, other practices, this town will utterly destroyed. The province with the rest of the island are to be subjugated. So this prophecy later come true when the Spaniards' innovation wreaked havoc among pre-Hispanic Filipinos and tore down their communities. The babaylan led the resistance against the colonization of their world. So from the coming of the Spaniards, they fought against the relocations and reorganizations of communities around the reduction parish system which is brought by the Spaniards in their community. So they convinced locals to refuse to the new religions as they fought to preserve their old beliefs. So this is where the chaos began. The Babaylan organized resistance by persuading the communities to kill their livestock, destroy their crops, and evacuate to the mountains to deprive the Spanish of these supplies. The Babaylan made a way in order not to follow the new religions that the Spaniards want them to follow and have because they want to preserve their cultures. So, the Babaylan, they tried to destroy their resources of food so that the Spaniards would not be able to have them or to have this supply.
Women in the Hispanic period.
Women in the Hispanic period in claiming the Philippine Islands, the Spaniards also colonized settlers of the land which is called the Filipinas. The Spaniard clergy saw early Filipinas as true sensuous and free with their behaviors but were appreciated for being intelligent, strong-willed, and practical. The Spanish admonished women to remain pure and obedient. It is important for the Spaniards that a Filipina woman could be completely subjugated to her husband or for her father and to the Catholic Church, remolding women to become an ideal woman. They were taught to avoid sin by keeping chaste, not being vain, dressing modestly, keeping busy at home, and being self-sacrificing. So the colonizer created women who was only active at home and withdraw from public sphere. If they are allowed to make or to seek education, women were placed in schools that was forced them the values of a characters of a new Filipina. Example of women, chastity, purity, and forbearance was portrayed by Rizal through the character of Maria Clara, who was sweet, docile, obedient, and self-sacrificing, and who had the courage to share the fate of beloved. It is what the Spaniards want a woman should portray. Filipinos were victims of the Spanish patriarchal system and its version of Catholicism. Women no longer gained active roles in the public sphere and lost its power to the wider spectrum of the society. So their diminished roles in the communal spheres and in the systems of production confined women to supporting roles such as status display and maintenance, reproduction and childbearing, and outside the homes they are devoted in their creative actions in church. The propaganda movement, however, began to recognize the crucial roles of women could assume, especially in campaign against Spain, although it is limited. Women participation in Filipinas played major roles in the times of conflicts as leaders, soldiers, healers, and heads of logistics operations. Gabriela Silang and Gregoria de Jesus were active participants in the war against Spain. Despite the 300 years of misogynistic reorientation, women could still find their places among men in the fight of Philippine liberation. So this historical fact indicates that women during the Spanish era were key actors in the Philippine Revolution, yet their exploit during this time have yet to be widely recognized. Women in the American era. After the struggles for independence from Spain, women continued their dynamic roles in the Philippine society. Women in the public spheres focusing on charity work and social services in the year 1990s and 1920s. Moranan observes that women at this time are bearers and implementers of social reform within an institution initially established by men. Decision-making at top levels of all this movement had largely been done by men. And lastly, certain women's association or groups campaigned for their voices to be heard, a rules given new definition. The attempts did not make a substantial impact on the exploitation of women through class and gender. 3 insights about women's movement from American until martial law activism are relevant. Firstly, these movements were begun and dominated by men. Secondly, that women's involvement in these movements gave them liberties and rules that were traditionally denied them. And lastly, the goals and objectives of these movements were valid for and important to a smaller or greater section of Filipino women. Women groups during the American period furthered the interests of the ruling classes in Western countries. Meanwhile, the furthering of national development in the export sector at the time caused great poverty.
The birth of militant groups with a feminist agenda. The new economic model under the American and post-war period brought about various levels of poverty. Many of the problems that women faced were a result of abusive structures that kept them poor and exposed to various kinds of exploitation. So during the American period, women faced a lot of problems. That's why women who worked under the Communist Party and the socialist group that rivaled it realized that the agenda for liberation could also serve women's quest for equality. The iconic Malayang Kilusan ng Bagong Kapabaihan or Makibaka, a radical women's group led by activists, showed that the root of women's problem lay in feudalism, capitalism, and colonialism. Makipaka groups said that the main problems of women lay in feudalism, capitalism, and colonialism. So they also asserted that the role of women in the liberation movement should not be confined to making sandwiches, raising funds, jotting down minutes of the meeting, and playing adjuncts to the male leaders who generally made the decisions. Eventually, they took part in organizing and educating women peasants and laborers, as well as in establishing daycare centers for the latter, which was important for freeing women to engage in public sphere. So technically, because of Makipaka, women have the chance to engage in public sphere and are free to take part of it. Makipaka became inactive because the leader was imprisoned or driven into hiding during the martial law. The Kilusan ng Kababaihang Pilipina and the Katipunan ng Kababaihan para sa Kalayaan were formed to challenge the potentially anti-women ways of the Communist Party leadership. This organization became an important part of history as it was the first group to emphasize the issues of women as integral and yet distinct from the general national liberation objectives of the party. The Kilusan ng Kababaihang Pilipinas focused on mainstreaming women's concerns in transformation of society. It promotes the welfare of women through different social development work. So, it promoted the welfare of women through social development work, particularly establishing cooperatives and providing training in women's concerns. Katipunan ng Kababaihang para sa Kalayaan, Kalayaan on the other hand worked within the national liberation agenda to ensure that the women's liberation issue were not secondary in the movement. National Organization of Women, a prominent group which was the adjunct of the United Democratic Opposition Party coalition. The intensifying call for conscientization and honest governance resulted in the foundation of other women groups such as Alliance of Women for Action Towards Reconciliation or AWARE, Women for the Ouster of Marcos and Boycott or WOM, Concerned Artists in the Philippines. Religious women also came together in alliance as well as such as Association of Women in Theology, Church Women United, which was affiliated with National Council of Churches in the Philippines. On October 28, 1893 to 1900, women took part in the largest women march that protested human rights abuses and the abuses of military. It is dubbed as the Women's Protest Day. Later on, they formed the General Assembly binding women for reforms, integrity, equality, leadership, and action, or the Gabriela. This group, the Gabriela, consistently protested against the policies and projects of the Marcos regime that were inimical to the people's interest. Also, increased awareness on issues affecting women, push for the implementation of government projects in ways that benefits women, provide trainings and education, and help channel funds to women's projects and organizations. Since the turmoil, women's movement in the Philippines shifted from a broad coalition to small tactical and issue or project-based alliances, and these issues include trafficking, domestic violence, maternal and reproductive health, protection of domestic women. Daycare or Women's Health Center, training for the protection of human rights, livelihood projects, and cooperative formation. Because of the 1986 Constitution and Local Government Code of 1992 that mandates consultation and people's participation in the local governance and development, party list groups and civil society organizations that were part of their coalition trained women's group become effective partner in the planning and implementing of development projects. Women's Party List Group made valuable contributions to women's liberation, including the agenda of the poor and marginalized women into a multi-sectoral collective action. Women in the Third World. Numerous forms of oppression occur because of a woman's socialized gender role. Often, this discrepancy is justified by religious or ideological beliefs, particularly the prevalent religious dogma which states that women should be subservient to men, or the culture which dictates women's place in home. The root of women's oppression is the lower status given to them and the pervading gender inequality of their society. Women workers are exploited because of their gender and their economic and social positions. paid less because they are women, and they stand as irregular workers or substitute workers to men. Women in the Philippines are made to suffer particularly difficult conditions because of their position as citizens in the third modern world. Some of the forms of violence includes rape, domestic violence, gender discrimination, and harassment at work and in homes affect women more than men. This form of oppression to women states that gender inequality because of the socialized gender role. Practical feminism.
Here are the top 10 Filipino women who advanced in modern feminism in the country. Number 1. Leticia Ramos, a chair of the National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women and UN Assistant Secretary for General Social Development and Humanitarian Affairs, as well former senator. She spearheaded the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women during the height of the international recognition of human rights. She started her terms as senator in 1987 under the first Aquino administration and served for 2 years, which she powered law intended to elevate the plight of the women. Number 2. Patricia Benitez Licuanan. She served as the chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education, a chairperson of National Commission Role of Women. She's a psychology graduate and powered her work on the problems of women, initially on the problems caused by migration. She was struck by the gender dimension on how different issues and affects women more than men. At chairperson, she continued to advocate gender equality in the Licuanan's educational institution. Number 3. Teresa Quintos. She is a peace advocate, a former president of a co-founder coalition for peace, chairperson of Nation Peace Conference, president advisor in the peace process during the time of Benigno Aquino III, a lead governor of National Anti-Poverty Commission. She mandated her active participation in the women's movement, particularly in the institution of Filipina, which is recognized as the first women organization in the Philippines to expose explicitly homegrown feminist line. Number 4. Sister Mary John Maranzan. She was a feminist artist who formed the Gabriela, a chairperson and a former president of St. Scholastica College and prioress of Missionary and Benedict Sister of Manila Prior. Named as one of the top 100 inspiring people and cited as the key instrumental in development of feminist third world theology within the Catholic Church and introduced the feminist activism. She led many women-centered organizations. She is also active in street parliament against the dictatorship during Marcos regime. Number 5. Sister Christine Tan. She was the first Filipina to head the Philippine province of the Religious of the Good Shepherd. She was a former chairperson of the executive board of the Association of Major Religion Superior of Women in the Philippines and a founder of Alay Kappa Christian Community and a member of 1986 Constitutional Convention. Number 6. Joy Barrios, born as Maria Josephine Barrios in 1962, a popular poet, actress, scriptwriter, and activist. Her works are composed of poet collection entitled "To be a woman is to live like at times of war." She was one among of the 100 women chosen as Weaver of History of the Philippine Centennial Celebration, an awardee of the 10 outstanding women in the national service or towns. Number 7. Lauren Barrios. Barrios is a woman leader, gifted writer, and one of the most icon of modern Philippines feminism. She was one of the well-known heroes during the dictatorship of struggles who founded o Palayang Kilusan ng Bagong Kababaihan o Makibaka. Number 8. Raisa Jejuri. Attorney Jejuri is a moral program coordinator of the Alternative Legal Center. She is an advocate of women's rights. She believed in justice of Muslim women in accordance with Islamic in teaching and human rights standard. The founder of Ulhak Bangsamoro, Women for Justice in Bangsamoro, an organization that conducts training, community dialogues, researches and policies and advocacy. Number 9. Rosalie Ambubuyog. She was blind and the first impaired Filipina to be awarded a summa cum laude. Aside from the achievement that she got inside the school, she also received different special award and recognition from the 10 outstanding student of the Philippines under the Knights of Rizal of the Philippine Island Service Award. Number 10. Rosa Henson. Lola Rosa was a comfort woman. She was service about the Filipina comfort women through her Comfort Women Slave of Destiny in 1992. She joined Hukbalahap and served as messenger. She was raped by scores of Japanese soldiers after the coming out of her story. She fought for justice for comfort women by joining demonstration and even filming suit in Tokyo. Current forms of oppression against Filipino women and their responses. Author Cynthia Nalasco summarized the three major issues that women face. First aspect of women oppression is due to their gender. As first aspect says that women face oppression due to gender simply because they are women. Second aspect is their membership in a social class or sector of society. Those, for instance, women suffer for hardship not only because they are women, but because they are managed as farmer, domestic servants, or factory worker. And lastly, women are oppressed as citizens as former colony due to the continuing effects exploitation, globalization. The combination of these three is called intersectional oppression or the multiple oppression that our women face due to the marginal or other parts of their identity.
In the Philippines, it has been observed time and again that the Philippines women's movement has been dominated by more practical concerns than ideological ones, unlike in the Western movements. This is due to the multiple oppression faced by Filipino women and Filipinos in general. Some major concerns in this case involve violence against women, trafficking, reproductive health rights, equality, especially in the workplace, representation in the government, and economic security. It is important to note because it marks the character of Philippine feminism, rather than a feminism that has evolved to take radical positions rooted in theoretical debates about the foundation and meaning of the oppression women. Philippine feminism has worked strategically with the state or with political and civil society movements to further the welfare of women. The feminist movements have a strong grassroots base usually organized by non-governmental organizations that promote women-oriented development.